So I did, my Lenten discipline was to read through Thomas Merton's Alaska Conferences, which was the last, these were the last seminars, lectures that he gave to nuns and to monks in Alaska before he went over to Thailand where he died. And a guy named Ron Dart, who's a Merton scholar in the Vancouver area. I can't remember whether he taught at the University of Fraser Valley or at Trinity Western, but so he said in a lecture this spring that the Alaska conferences were Merton in his childlike maturity, speaking of tension. And it's a wonderful, and it is. It's so it was a great introduction back into Merton. But one of the words that Merton uses a lot in those conferences is ineffable. You know, the ineffable love of God. So, which essentially means it's beyond words. And so every time you try and put it into words, you need to have this humility that you are approximating, or as Bart talks about it, every human word simply points to something that's way beyond it. So with that context, I think what for me, especially in, this would be true in participation in all worship, is the reality of the working of the love of God, of the reconciling love of God. So Presbyterians are still take kind of theological formulation seriously. And so in Living Faith, which is our most recent attempt to summarize the key elements in the faith, in the introduction to that, we say that the great affirmation in the statement of faith, the great affirmation of the gospel truth, is found in 2 Corinthians 5:19 to 20, where Paul said, God was reconciling the world to himself in Jesus Christ, not holding their sins against them, and making us ambassadors of that message. So what is always at work, whether I can see it or not, this goes back to the invisible church discussion that we've been having around Brentwood here, is that what is always at work is that reconciling love of God. So for me, if I was to say what's the non-negotiable, it's the conviction that that reconciling love is at work, and the recognition that I don't fully understand. So I've gotten glimpses of it from a Reformed perspective. I've been given revelations of it, but there is so much more there to be discovered, to live into. Yeah. So Dan, what are the phrases that's becoming kind of our part of the Brentwood culture, is that we're living into this reconciling love. And one of the things that I love about this stuff, about Jazz's conversation, I was saying to Tom at the coffee break, there's a school in England, I think it's at the the business department of the University of Nottingham, like Patricia Cornwall and Roger or somebody, right? But Patricia will go in and work with a business organization and refuse to take notes and refuse to have things summarized on flip charts, because her argument is that freezes the conversation. And her core point is that you co-create the organization, one conversation after another, and that when you have the conversation, the organizations change. And you don't want to freeze that process in any way, shape, or form. Now, as Tom said, I'm not ready to go quite that far. I get the point, but I think there is value in capturing the insights that have been generated by the conversation. So in a sense, there is wisdom in capturing the tradition, so that that tradition can become the seedbed for, from the church's point of view, from an expanded understanding of what it means to be participating in the kingdom, the commonwealth of God.
I have a musical example if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
So, pentatonic. Here's the pentatonic scale, right? It's very stable because all the intervals, all the relationships that I make are pretty stable and constant. But what we did is we added a blue note, the tension in here. And that's where that richness comes from.
Yeah.
But this scale is around, this is the foundation of music in the East, basically.
Yeah.
And then a major scale is the same thing, plus a tritone. So that could be a musical history. Without that, it would all be there would be no tension, basically. So that's one of the fundamental rhythms of classical music is that movement from the tonic dominant, right? Dominant, tonic, unstable, is evolved. That's what we're dealing with like blues. To keep that tension. Just the pentatonic scale is one extra ugly thing, right?
Yeah. Is it fair to say that's recognizing, to go back to what Tom was saying, is what that's recognizing is the reality of pain, the reality of suffering, the reality of imperfections.
What I hear you saying is that
That may be too simplistic.
no, maybe I'm hearing you saying that, for example, with depression, what you're experiencing is this kind of chaos where maybe there's a transition where something is dying and then something is emerging out of that, and all that's happening within. But like you're having to embrace that process and learn to trust that there's a meaning or new meaning will emerge.
Yeah, I think both and for me, and I think everybody's journey may be different, but and all of that's held in a cauldron of hope for me, and that's why the gospel reaches to the core of who I am, because hope is a kind of cauldron in which all this stuff gets mixed. So there's the anticipation of beauty and a future that's vitalizing out of which good stuff emerges. And that's jazz too, but yeah, that's true. And I like the tritone used to be considered of the devil.
Yeah, you get excommunicated.
And yet introducing the tritone creates the complexity of what we now all just take for granted as modern music.
It's like the grammar of modern music.
Yeah, but the grammar is also hierarchical. It's about power. There's the pillars, and then there's the gray matter. And there's more important and less important. So that's what that scale is about. And for a long time, that's the way our society was too. Maybe it still is.
You mean?
Yeah, imperialism, domination, etc.
Yeah.
But then that system was broken down. And so that's what we're studying in jazz. It's about how to break that down, that hierarchy.
Theologically, I have a position that I hold and that I teach, is that we are created in the image and likeness of God.
Yeah.
And part of that being in the image and likeness of God, and I'm not going to, I don't believe in God as a super being, human being, 2 legs and a beard and all of that. But when we talk about being in the image and likeness of God, I believe we share with God His character. The things that are the essence of God, the character. The ability to love and the ability to create. Unlike God, we cannot create ex nihilo.
Right.
But we have the ability to create. And just as we are approaching our wholeness when we are able to love and to receive love, I think we are approaching our wholeness when we are being creative. And it's certainly being creative can bring us closer to God. It can increase our health, our physical health, and our mental health and our spiritual health. And it is being fully human to be creative. But we have to have periods of chaos as well. Because the philosophical expression of creation is that God created out of chaos. Yeah. And I think our best creativity comes out of chaos. And that can be, an emotional chaos, spiritual chaos, mental chaos.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Yeah. I think of the image. I wrote this book on disability theology, but the Imago Dei is really important in that work for me. And I think of 3 things as reflective of the image of God, creativity being one. So that when we're creative, we're actually connecting with God and participating in God's ongoing creativity. And the second is relational. And that opens up to availability to others. And chaos is part of that. That's what I mean by tension and dissonance. And I worry, in some sense, chaos is a term that's sometimes used in negative ways. And I hear you saying positive chaos.
Yeah, I agree.
So, because I could think of some experiences, thinking of chaos in my own life, where I think of my response as horror, being overwhelmed, traumatic horror.
Yeah.
And in that sense, chaos needs to be named as a negative thing, I think, and resisted. But in the positive sense of it, it could be an invitation. So I'm wrestling a little bit.
Even when it's appearing to be negative, we can use that. We can embrace that, say yes, and allow that as a space for God to come in.
And for me, and I guess this is why I continue to remain committed. So you go back to that word, responsive, to what I perceive in the gospel is this idea of hope, that there's something larger inviting me into a future, so that I don't have to have the answers and I can rest in the silence. And I like that because in terms of jazz, space is good. Not knowing what to play is a good thing. Okay, wait. You don't have to assert your voice too quickly.
Thank you.